Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is part 3 of Obey the Powers That Be. Why are our people getting shot down by police and law enforcement officials? Alright, we're going to continue where we left off at. We're going to the new chapter. This is Daniel, the 3rd chapter. Because I was mentioning that we're supposed to obey the powers that be and obey the people who rule over us. But that's in righteousness. If they tell us to be wicked, to break the Most High's commandments, then we're supposed to... The Most High's commandment overrides that. Alright? Daniel 3 and 1.
The book of Daniel.
Daniel 3 and 3, I'm sorry.
The book of Daniel, chapter 3, verse 3. Then the princesses, the governors and captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriff, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up.
So Nebuchadnezzar the king had Israelites in captivity. They were under the Babylonian Empire, which be today known as Ethiopians or Cushites. That's what Nebuchadnezzar was. So we was in captivity under them. So Nebuchadnezzar set up a big image, a graven image. And he told the people, everybody under him, to bow to that image. Now read at 6, jump down to 6.
And those falleth not down and worship shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace.
So if you didn't bow down to that idol, you were cast into a furnace. That's what that's telling you. If you didn't bow down to the idol that Nebuchadnezzar set up. Alright. Let's go down to let's go to 11.
Okay. And who falleth not down and worship, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace.
So they reiterated that. If you didn't bow down, you're going to be cast into a fiery furnace. Read down 12. Just keep going.
There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up.
So Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego do not want to bow down to that image, that God, that the king has set up. Why? Because the law tells us, the commandment tells us in Exodus 20 and 4, not to make any graven images, and then it tells us not to bow down to those graven images. So they may have not made that image, but it still was an image that was set up. So they were obeying the Most High's laws. Now, the power that was in power was Babylon. But because they was telling them to break the Most High's laws, they didn't do it. All right? So we're going to read... No, keep going. 13.
Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach,
Meshach, and
Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king.
All right, so when Nebuchadnezzar heard this, he was raged. He had rage. He was on fire. He was angry that these men didn't bow down to this image. So he commanded them to be brought before him. Go ahead.
Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, It is true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up?
All right, so he asked, is this true that you don't serve my gods, that you don't worship my image? That's what he asked them, because he was angry and he brought them before and he asked them. Go ahead.
Now, if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and declamer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands?
So they was told again, once again, when this music and the instruments are being played, because that's what it mentioned. It mentioned a lot of different instruments that was being played. And when you hear these sounds, you're to bow down to that image. All right, that's what the king told him. He gave him another chance to see if they were going to do it. Okay, go ahead.
16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter.
All right, so he told the king, we're not careful to answer these matter, meaning we're gonna answer it respectfully, but we're still gonna make sure we answer it the correct way. Go ahead.
17. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of the hand, O king.
So they said, the Most High is gonna deliver us out of the king's hand. Because we're not gonna bow down to this image. Go ahead. 13. 18.
But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up.
So even if the Most High didn't deliver them, let it be known that we're not going to bow down to the image. Whether the Most High, whether they get delivered or not, they were not going to bow down to that image. Go ahead.
19. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it want it to be heated.
So he was full of fury, and he commanded his men heat it 7 times more than normally it'll be heated. He wanted to make sure they burn up in there. That's what he wanted to do. Make sure they're cooked. Go ahead.
20. And he commanded that the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace.
So he commanded those men to cast them into the furnace. Go ahead.
21. Then these men were bound in their coats, their horses, and their hats, and in their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace.
So they grabbed these men, these 3 men, and they grabbed them. The word hosen basically means pants. Because if you look at the hose, the shape of it, and when you see pants, it looks like a hose, like a way a hose looks. And you can put 1 leg in each, not a dress, not anything like that. All right, go ahead.
22. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the first furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Okay, stop right here. So when these men went to throw Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego in the furnace, because the furnace was 7 times hotter, it killed those men that was throwing them in the furnace. The flame burnt them. All right, go ahead.
And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace.
So after they threw them men in, they died. And then these men fell down bound into the midst of the fiery furnace. All right, good.
Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spake, and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto king, True, O king.
So he asked, then we throw 3 men in there? Go ahead.
He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. So
they put Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego was put in the fiery furnace, but guess who was with him in the furnace, who unloosed them? It tells you who that was. That's the Son of the Most High. So this is an appearance of Christ in the Old Testament, one of the appearances. Because it tells you, even the man of the other nation said that 4th is like the Son of God. So, just like the Messiah, just like the Messiah loosed Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, It's the same way he will loose us from the fires that we go through, the tribulation that we go through. And if we follow the Messiah, we won't go into the fire in the second coming. All right. Go ahead.
Then Nebuchadnezzar came near the mouth of the burning fury furnace and spake and said, Satrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither. Then Satrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth out of the midst of the fire.
You see that? Because they was faithful to the Most High commandments, the Most High used his son to deliver them out of the fiery furnace. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and 1.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I have commanded thee this day, that the Lord thy God will send thee on high above all nations of the earth.
So the Most High said if we keep his commandments, he's going to set us upon high upon all the nations of the earth. All right? And I'm going to show you who these people are talking about. This is scripture that I forgot to put. Read Deuteronomy 27 and 1.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 27, verse 1. And Moses, with the elders of Israel, commanded the people, saying, Keep all the commandments which I commanded you this day.
All right, so who was Moses speaking to in Deuteronomy 28? Speaking to the children of Israel, not the other nations. All right? So I just had to establish that. So we don't think this is Africans or Hamites or, so forth and so on. 15?
Chapter 15.
No, 28 and 15.
28 and 15, I know. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments and his statutes, where I commanded thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
All right, so this is what happens if the children of Israel does not keep the Most High's commandments. Then the curse is going to come upon them. Now I'm going to go into the curses that we're going through. 25.
The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
All right, so the Most High says that when we try to fight against our enemy, we're gonna be smitten. We're gonna flee 7 ways. Like when he came here, to conquer the Native Americans, they tried to fight back with their bow and arrows, but their bow and arrows didn't work against their guns. So once the first one got shot and saw what that gun did, it was like it's time to retreat because we don't know what that is he's bringing over here. All right, let's go to Matthew 5 and 25. So we're almost done. Trying to get it all done before a certain time. We have a certain a lot. 5 and 25.
The book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 25. Agree with thy adversary quickly, while thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison.
All right, so when we get stopped by these cops or whoever else in the position, agree with them quickly. Yes, sir, no, sir, whatever you have to say, so that you don't get cast into prison. You don't got to be delivered to the judge, be delivered to the officer, and they cast you into prison. All right, this ends part 3. I'm gonna say shalom, brothers and sisters, and I hope you brothers repent. All right, shalom.
Shalom, my brothers.